But today, there's a lot to uncover, and this is going to be so enlightening for you. Truth number one, the enemy is always internal. I want to tell you the moment I saw it. I was reading The Art of War years ago. Sun Tzu said the war is won before it starts. Meaning, the outcome was already decided somewhere nobody could see. Then Lao Tzu opened his entire life work by saying that Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Crazy, right? Admitting his own book can't hold what he's trying to say. Then I came across something about Buddha, and it's so interesting. He said, anyone who claims he ever taught anything is spreading rumors. Didn't know that, did you? And then Musashi, a Japanese samurai, he said, perceive what cannot be seen with the eye. When I saw that cross-references, I said, damn, really? 4 completely different worlds, all saying the same thing. Reality operates at a level that human expression cannot fully reach. Everything we think we know is just a best approximation of something much larger. That's when I realized the map they left wasn't in their words. It was underneath them. Now, think about every time you have hit a wall in reality. Every time something didn't work out the way it should have. Every time you got close and then somehow it fell apart. Most people will look outside. The timing was wrong. The market shifted. Something didn't add up. The wrong people were involved, yada yada. But Sun Tzu, a man surrounded by literal war and death, figured out something that should stop you cold. Every general who lost was already defeated before the battle began by something inside themselves they never dealt with. And Sun Tzu's original text isn't even accurately titled. The Art of War is a mistranslation. The original Chinese is closer to Master Sun's military methods. Unfortunately, you don't read Chinese, but if you ever want to read The Art of War and all the other Chinese esoteric texts, I'm not sponsored by them anyway, this is quite a closest thing possible, okay? Now, the whole text is really about the internal state of the commander. The battlefield is almost secondary. A clear mind wins, and an unclear mind loses before the first move is made. Now, move on to the Buddha. The Buddha left a kingdom because he looked at human suffering and realized the world was never the problem. Lao Tzu watched an entire civilization collapse and came to the same conclusion. Musashi fought 61 duels and never lost once, 61-0, even better than Mayweather, and said that the most dangerous opponent he'd ever faced was his own mind. This weren't men just theorizing from comfort, war, death, civilization collapsing. 61 fights where losing means dying. That's what makes the agreement impossible to dismiss. They didn't arrive here because it sounded good. They arrived here because everything else fought worse. The enemy was never out there. It was always in here. And the reason that's uncomfortable is because some part of you already know it's true and has known it for a while. With that being said, let's move on to truth number 2. How do you dance? How do you make that dance move again? Dun 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 dun. Wait, dun 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 dun. Right? Crazy. I was a dancer. I was everything. Truth number 2. What you perceive is not reality. What? Okay. Now, if truth number 1 is the door, then truth number 2 is what's been holding it shut. You have never once experienced reality directly. Everything you have seen, felt, decided, reacted to was filtered through your mind before it reached you. Your fears, your wounds, your story about who you are, and what's possible. The Dhammapada opens with it, the very first line. And this kind of go hand in hand with the Kabbalion, but quite honestly, Chinese esoteric is more of my expertise, you know? So I'm just going to try to stay in this lane this video. First line of Dhammapada. Mind is the forerunner of everything. And the Buddha placed this before any teaching on morality, compassion, or enlightenment. Before any of it. Your mind is upstream of everything you will ever experience. Lao Tzu said the world you see is a reflection of the orientation you're holding inside. And Sun Tzu said two generals can look at the exact same battlefield and see completely different things. And that difference has nothing to do with the terrain. Musashi said a clouded mind and a clouded sword are the same thing. What you've been calling your life, you're like, life, bro, it's life. Your life is nothing more than your current level of consciousness looking back at you. Change that and you start seeing a different world, which means the world you're seeing right now is telling you exactly where you are. We're moving on really quick here, but man, I'm very hyped. So let's go. Number 3. Truth number 3. Force is a signal. Now, almost every culture on human earth glorifies force. Push harder, grind longer. If it's not working force, it's more. But every single one of these 4 men, the warrior, the general, the mystic, the philosopher, arrive all at the opposite conclusion. And the reason they did say something uncomfortable about what your hustle is actually made of. Lao Tzu himself, he watched kingdom fall with sheer will. Called effortless action the highest form of mastery. The state where that you're doing and what you are becoming the same thing. No internal friction, no resistance. Sun Tzu himself once said, supreme victory is the one that requires no battle at all. Musashi, the Japanese samurai that I respect a lot, he said, unnecessary force is proof that the mind hasn't found its center. And the Buddha finished it off, pointing at saying something underneath all of it. Every time you're forcing, you're operating from fear. Fear it won't happen. Fear you're not enough. Fear that if you stop pushing, everything falls apart. The grind isn't the problem. What's driving the grind is, and that's the question none of them were afraid to ask, but most people spend their whole life avoiding. So for those hustle bros out there saying like, oh, so you're telling us to be lazy? No, I'm not telling you to be lazy. But why are you pushing yourself? It's really, really the main reason, the main question you need to be concerned. Because if you're pushing yourself because you genuinely think that you can do good to the world, you're going to expand, you're going to do something that's so meaningful, and you're going to scale, that's a good force. But if it's because of, I want to get all these rations into my plate, if I don't grab it now, then when? Then you need to deeply reconsider what you're doing. Truth number 4, identity is the ceiling. Now, what do I mean by that? If the enemy is internal, perception is a current state of consciousness, and force signals fear, this one is the one that hits hardest, like Mike Tyson punch, because it's about what you have been protecting. The wall you keep hitting, the one that shows up no matter what strategy you try, no matter what you change on the outside, isn't out there. It's you. Specifically, the version of you that you have been protecting. Lao Tzu said, the moment you define yourself is the moment you cut yourself off from what you actually are. The Buddha said, the defeated self is the root of all suffering, not some of it, all of it. Sun Tzu, who's a military general, respected by a lot of leaders today, said, whose patterns are known is already defeated, because a fixed identity is very, very predictable, and predictable means you're beaten before you even move. Easy clap for anyone. Musashi refused titles, schools, allegiances his entire life. He spent his whole life being the best at something and concluded that the attachment to being the best, the identity of being the best, was the thing that would have eventually destroyed him. The ceiling isn't the skill. It's the self that owns the skill. I will say that again. The ceiling isn't the skill. The ceiling is the self that owns the skill. The ceiling isn't your market. It isn't your competition. It's the story about who you are that you have been carrying so long. You stop at noticing it was a story.